Hey YouTube, just want to do a quick video on the 2020 Raptor rigid fog light install here. I'm not going to go over installing the brackets, those are pretty straightforward. The instructions go over that pretty well. What I do want to go over is the wiring though. Hold on. Alexa, shut up. Sorry, I don't want to get demonetized with my music playing in the back. Not that I'm monetized to begin with, but whatever. Anyway, what I want to show you here is where the wire locations are for the your accessory switches inside and your pass-through wires. It just passes through the firewall, so you have wiring from inside the firewall out to other accessories you want to run out here. So literally it's just a pass-through. So your wires for your relays, for your switches inside, they come out right here. They're underneath, they're tucked underneath, they're actually taped into the harness. All you're going to see is like a little nub of wires in there like that, up underneath these plugs. So these are just tucked up under there. So you pull them out and you have these wires. And so you know which wires they are. They have little pieces of heat shrink around them right here. And they're all color coded, so you know what the color code is. The actual color code is here. If you have a 2017 to 2018 and a half, this is your color code for auxiliary switch 1 through 6. There's your color code, and this is the amperage that wire will handle for that switch. And then we go over here, 2018 to 2020, you have a different set of color codes here for auxiliary 1 through 6. And this is the amperage that they will hold. You don't want to hook up a light that draws, say, 20 amps on a 15 amp circuit, or a 10 or a 5 amp. You can still run it, but you'd have to run a relay in line with that outside of the wiring harness, like on the firewall or something. You'd put a separate relay here if you're running, only if you're running over 20 amps. If you're running 15 amps and under, you can use these wires. Just the thicker wires are your 15 amp wires. You could feel the gauge, the difference in the gauge. This is going to be your 15 amp. This is probably a 5 amp or a 10. Oh, this is your 5 amp here. See how I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the difference in the gauge. See how this one's fatter than this one down here, and then the center one's actually fatter than the last one. This is your 15, your 10, and your 5 amp wires. What I'm going to do is I just ran my harness up through the, I can't see it here yet. I haven't pulled it all the way up here yet. But I just run my harness down through here, down along the frame, and then what they tell you in the instructions is to run it between the frame and the skid plate. I don't like doing that just because you go in for service, they drop the skid plate, that wire's going to get in their way, or you bang on a rock hard enough, it might pinch the wires. I don't like that. I just follow the factory. I follow the factory harness, factory wires that run just behind this piece of the bumper here. It's a little, you'll feel the little rubber flap. I run it through here, and then it'll dump the wires right where you need them, right on top of these lights. It runs straight in between these two right here. That's where the factory wiring harness is. I just removed this plate here to get access to pulling the harness through behind here. You don't have to pull that off, it's just easier. And it's just got the little clips on it. that clip into here. Do not put anything in front of here. These little doors right here to open and close for your intercooler to heat up or to cool off your turbo. So do not put anything in front of that. I'm going to finish up some of this wiring. I'll go over a little bit of the wiring under here for you, hooking up the lights. And I'll go over the wires there through the firewall a little bit. Let me get some of this completed and I'll come back and I'll show you what I did. Okay, so here I routed the driver's side wire. I routed that up above with the factory wire loom behind the bumper here instead of over this plate, which I don't really want to do that because, yeah, it just doesn't look right. Plus, if you have to service or something get in here, then you got that wire hanging down. But anyway, it's pretty simple to run it through where the factory wiring harness runs. And it shoots it right out in a perfect spot for you, right here. So what we do is we just shorten these wires to where you need them. Right here for the lights. Sorry, I'm laying on my back here and trying to keep the camera angled straight. But shorten these, you want to strip these out. Strip them and then strip these wires and put butt connectors on them. And these are all labeled for you, number 1, 2, and 3 for the red wires. That's your power wire for the light. And then these 3 white wires that run through the harness, those are your amber running lights. So when you turn your running lights on, this is going to be your amber running light. And then you have these 3 black wires, that's your grounds for each individual light. So let me get some butt connectors on here and I'll show you what I mean. What I like to use, if you didn't buy the harness with the weather pack connectors, you got a butt connector these on, and what I do is I use these style connectors. They work really well. It's heat shrink, and I'll show you in a minute how they work. But you crimp them on and you heat them up and it heat shrinks and glues around the wire so no moisture gets in there and creates a really good seal. Let me go ahead and button this up real quick and I'll show you what I mean. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm just going to show you, if you don't know how to put a butt connector on, I'm going to show you how to do it. If you already know how to do this, you could probably skip ahead. But basically, I use my stripping tool. These are come in very handy. You just stick your wire in there. I already stripped these, but I'm going to show you how it's done. Stick it in there. Your jaws there, it clamps on and then just strips the shielding away. Makes it a lot easier. Then you come over here and you want to twist the ends of each one of these wires. Make sure they're twisted. The reason for that being, I'll show you in a second here. I'll just go through here and make sure all my tips are twisted. Okay, what we want to do, the reason why we do that, here's my connector. When we put the connector on, if those aren't twisted, this wire can push back and fray out. And then you do that on enough of these, you can have a short. You can short out. Also, what it does, it makes this wire stiffer and more rigid. So when you go to crimp it, like this, crimp it down, it makes it a much more solid connection. So I'm just going to go ahead and put connectors on all these wires and then I'll show you what the end result is when I'm done. Okay, I just want to add in here that first of all, here's the end result of the crimping of the wires. And what I like to do, I just kind of like to get all the wires in one position here. Now, when you're wiring these, the only wires that matter to get numbered is the red wires. 1, 2, and 3 is your switch 1, 2, 3. So whatever you have wired over there is number 1. Say like I'm using the outside light as number 1. The other side is wired as number 1. And also in your, when we wire up to the firewall, switch auxiliary number 1 will be your first set of lights, number 1. So if you look on your wires here, I think that's number 1. Yeah, so here's number 1. This red number 1 goes to red number 1 of your first light in your chain here. The other wires don't matter. Just white to white, it's your running wire, and black to black, which is your ground. It doesn't matter which ground you use, it doesn't matter which white you use. They're all the same wire. So the only ones that matter to use are the red wires that are numbered. So number 1 goes to the first light, number 2 goes to your second light, number 3 goes to your third light. Only the red wire. The white wire is your running light. That's the orange wire that comes on, or the orange light that comes on when you're running, when you turn the key on, when the running lights come on. That's what the white wire is for. That is a positive wire, that's a hot wire. These 3 black wires are your grounds. That's your ground wire. So this doesn't matter, this isn't numbered, this is just a ground. This only goes to ground. This isn't numbered either, this is just your running wire. Your running light wire. But these are the only ones that matter to get right. 1, 2, and 3. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to show you how these crimp connectors work. I got it all crimped together here. Once I'm done, this will be all loomed and put away, but I keep it apart like this so I can heat shrink them. But all you do is you just heat them up, and they will shrink down and insulate that wire. They're really cool. I think I got them on Amazon. I think they were like $10 for a tray, and they really they really come in handy. They actually work really well. Anyway, this is the after effect, or aftermath, I guess, of the lights being wired into here. Once I'm done heat shrinking these, I'll loom this all up, and then I'll tie these up out of the way so they won't get in the way of the tire or rocks or anything being thrown up in here. And it'll be a nice, solid install. Give me a second and I'll show you the end result. Okay, I'm going to show you the finished product here. Here's our, let me get the light in the right position. There's our finished look. Put a little Tessa tape on it. Tucked it up out of the way. And you don't need a whole bunch of zip ties. Just a couple zip ties to hold your harness in place. And just tuck your wires up out of the way. And you'll be good to go. Just take your time, do it right, and it'll come out a nice clean install. Okay, so what you want to do, you want to run these in a fashion that is out of the way for people. Still have to service this vehicle, people still have to work on things. You want to make sure this wire is not going to be rubbing up against like an AC line or a heater hose or something in that way. Usually what I like to do is follow the factory wiring harness. I always find part of the factory wiring and just run it along their route. See how these factory wires are down here? I don't know if you can see that. See how that factory harness runs from the frame and it runs all the way up over here by the battery box. Just always try, if you can, to follow the factory wiring. It'll save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of future problems. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to set. Just had it sitting here. There we go. Okay. So, really? There we go. You get the idea. So, this first wire coming off the loom is your ground. It has a ring terminal. It's the only one that has a ring terminal. Only wire by itself. What you want to do is run it down here to this 8mm. There's a little 8mm ground right here. Factory ground. And it would help if I had an 8mm, not a 7. There's an 8mm. Okay. Just want to get on that. Take it out of there. If it wants to cooperate. Okay. Now all you're going to do, there's a little washer nozzle here you'll kind of want to run behind. Put your bolt through that eyelet connector. You don't have to use a screw gun or impact. You can use a wrench or ratchet. I just do this because it's easier and quicker. Get it back in the hole there. That's the difficult part here. There we go. Just move it in a position that makes sense. If it's all jammed up, it's not going to tighten right. So you kind of want to push it to the side of the other connector there, the ring terminal. Don't want to over tighten it. Usually what I'll do is I'll take a ratchet once I've tightened this down and feel it with a ratchet to make sure that this didn't under or over tighten that bolt. I usually leave it a little loose with this and then go back and tighten it with a ratchet. Okay, so here's the wires that we ran down below. We just hooked up our ground, so there's not going to be a black wire in here. So we have our first set of lights, which is number 1, which is auxiliary 1 on your switches. Our second set of lights, number 2, which is auxiliary number 2. And we have number 3, which is our third set of lights, which is auxiliary number 3 in your switches. This white wire is your running light. So what that means is, with this white wire hooked up, when you turn your running lights on or you turn your key on, this is going to light those 3 light pods up orange. They're going to be orange and it's a running light. So this we have to get into after we do this part. So let me go ahead and hook these up and I will get back to you in a second. Okay, so we're back at it here. I put my connectors on here to prepare for the hookup of the wires. Okay, what we're using here, this is a 2020 Ford Raptor. So I'm going to go to this set of schematics here. Auxiliary 1 is green-white. Auxiliary 2 is brown-white. And auxiliary 3 is gray-yellow. And as you can see, those are all on here. Auxiliary 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do, let me find those in this harness that we pulled out underneath these set of plugs. First one's going to be green-white. So here's our green-white. Second one's going to be brown-blue. Let's see, here's brown-blue. And then the third one's going to be gray-yellow. If I can find it. Oh, here we go. Here it is. So there's our gray-yellow. These are the 3 wires that we're going to be using for this install. And after this, we still have 3 more positions for accessory lights that you want to put on here, or anything else you want to control with those auxiliary light switches. So what I'm going to do here is I always like to just cut these flush to make sure that they're all the same size and it comes out clean install. So I always find the shortest wire of these 3 wires and just cut it to the length of those 3 wires. Now you may notice I'm cutting them all 3 differently, separately. The reason for that is if there was any power on these, which there isn't, I already know there isn't, but that's a rule of thumb that I do. Just in case there was a ground or something in here. If I would have just clipped all these wires at the same time and there was a hot and a ground in here, I would have just shorted that hot out and popped the fuse inside the car. Which you don't want to do because you create all the problems and whatnot, but that's why I clip all 3 separately. And you just take your stripper here, strip these 3 back. And again, you want to keep in mind where those 3 stripped wires are, because like I said before, if you were to have a ground in here and you're just stripping away and you got a ground and a hot that's always hot, you short those 2 out, you're going to pop a fuse, or if there's no fuse on that circuit, you can cause a fire. So just keep in mind where your wires are. Same thing as before. Twist them all up. And the only reason why I'm stripping all 3 of them right now, normally I'll strip it, put a terminal on, strip it, put a terminal on. The only reason why I'm doing that right now is just so I can show you in the video what these 3 wires do and where they go. Auxiliary 1, which is I made my 2 outside lights, green, white, is going to go to my number 1. So here's my number 1. That's going to go here. So we crimp that. I always make sure that whenever you crimp a wire, give it a tug. Make sure it's crimped on there right, and it's not gonna pull out of your crimp. That's how you know that you did your crimp right. Okay, auxiliary number 2 is brown blue. So let's grab our brown blue. Find number 2 in this harness. There's number 2. Slide it in there. Crimp it good and tight. That one's good. Give it a little tug. It's in there. And process of elimination, that's number 3. That goes to our, just to check, gray yellow. There's gray yellow. That goes into that connector. Give it a good crimp. Good tug. It's in there. Now this white wire, you're probably thinking, well, he didn't hook up the white wire. Well, because the white wire is your running lights, and we're going to have to hook that up in the kick panel on the inside. And these pass-through wires down here that I showed you in the beginning, we got to hook it up to one of these pass-through wires. So what I got to do is find the pin inside the harness inside, hook it up to one of these pass-through wires, and then hook this up outside here to this pass-through wire. Let me go ahead and do that and I'll get back to you. Okay, so what I'm doing here now is to hook up the running light wire, which is kind of difficult to find if you don't know what you're looking for. I just pulled this out of the way so you could see a full picture of what's going on over here. Normally there's the plastic piece that runs here and all that, but I just wanted you to get a full view of what's going on underneath this dash. The other video I watched it doesn't tell you where the other wires are, and it gets you in a good direction, but it's not fully informational. So what you want to do is pull this plug out right here, like that. Get yourself a little flathead screwdriver, knock this little red piece off the bottom. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You could probably do it with your fingernail, like that. Of course, it wants to fight me because I'm trying to make a video. There we go, it's gone. And then make sure this plugs all the way over here. Flip this way a little bit. Stick your screwdriver in there. Pop that off. There was a zip tie holding this on. You got to cut that zip tie that's on there. And then take your wire that they supplied you. Mine's yellow. They could be green. I think they just use scrap wire laying around. Put a terminal on it. Let me get a close-up of this so you can see. If I can get this mount down here. Okay, and this plug, sorry, this mount is terrible. There we go. Get some light on it. So in this plug, if you're holding it in your hand, the lower right corner, there's some wires going in here. They might be purple. I don't know if they're different colors in the different years, but second plug from the right on the bottom. Take your wire with your terminal. Make sure you got it the right direction, which I probably don't. Yeah, there we go. Slide it in there. See where this is facing? See that little indent on there? Make sure that's rotated to the back side. Stick it in that second hole. Slide it in until you feel it click. And then give it a tug. If you tug and it pulls out, you have it in the wrong direction. But if you tug and it's snapped in, you're good. Now, this is the difficult part. This is the one that stumped me the first time. And I'm sure it's going to stump you, and you're going to be cursing and saying, the video didn't show me where the wires were. Well, I'm going to show you where the wires are, because it's kind of ridiculous that they didn't show us. So, let's see. Sorry, I'm taking the camera off the mount here. Let's get up underneath the dash. Now here's the box that we pulled that plug off of. Look directly above that box, right next to the blower motor. There'll be some wires just kind of tucked up in here out of the way. You got to look for them. There they are. Just give them a little tug. There's your wires. That's the wires that run up underneath the pass-through harness. So these are the wires you want. Pick any color. You could pick red. Well, if they had red. You could pick gray, yellow. You could pick green or whatever colors here. Just pick whatever color, because these don't connect to anything up underneath the engine compartment. So just a wire that you can easily remember. I'm going to choose this nice gray with a blue stripe here, or brown with a blue stripe. And then I'll just butt connector those two together. Put your plug back together. Plug it back in, make sure it seats properly. It's the same kind of plug as this right here. It'll go in and then you'll push and it'll lock in. So let me go ahead and get that hooked up and I'll show you the end result in here. Give me a sec. Okay, when you're all said and done, this is what it should look like. There's your plug that you took out. The wire should run back through there. It goes up there to the wire that I chose. This wiring isn't mine. It was a dealer installed aftermarket alarm. But there you go with that. And I will go finish the wiring under the hood and then we'll test everything out. Okay, all that's left here on this install is to grab the green wire that we found on the inside to use. Let's hook that up here to our last butt connector. There's that. And we got to clean up all these wires here. The wires we didn't use, and then the wires for our auxiliary wires. And test everything out. And we are done. That's all we got to do. And hopefully this video helped you. Hopefully what I do here actually helps some people. I'm not monetized, so I don't get paid for this. I just do this to help you guys out. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Okay, this finished product. Hey Doug, will you get in there and flip the lights on real quick? One by one, please. Wait, let me put the hood down.
Hold on.
Ow! Okay. Sweet. Now all off. There you go. Awesome. Looks good.